Hey everybody, welcome back to the Calibrate Tools and DIY channel. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing because Calibrate Tools and DIY is all about education, information. It's all about tools. We seek to inform you, okay? All things trades, all things tools, all things home improvement, all that good stuff. And today we're going to talk about a topic. I'm going to jump right into it. We're going to talk about a topic that I think is very important. It's something we can't escape, right? It's one of those isms that exist out there, but it's not necessarily illegal. Okay, in most for the most part, it's not necessarily illegal. And if you work in the trades or you're a part of a union or anything like that, you're pretty familiar with this term, and it's called nepotism. Nepotism, guys. What is nepotism? Okay, nepotism. Let's define it. Let's see what it says about nepotism. By the way, come on in the chat. I appreciate any of you who want to contribute to the conversation, talk about your experiences. That's always welcome here. That's why I do the live, so I can communicate with my audience and get your feedback. So it's not just about me talking, it's about getting your feedback, getting you involved, so we can have a back and forth conversation so everybody can learn. So back to the topic, guys, nepotism. Tell me what nepotism is in the chat, guys, if you know what it is. If you know what nepotism is, guys. But nepotism is defined as the practice of giving jobs or favorable treatment to friends and family members. And is it illegal? Well, not really. Is it a form of discrimination? Yes. But like I said, it's not necessarily illegal. It happens all over the place. Matter of fact, I guarantee you, where you work right now, if you have a job, if you're working for somebody, there's some form of nepotism going on. Okay. And hey, let's ask ourselves this question. If we were the head of a company and we had a family member, we had a daughter, for instance, and she just got married and the guy doesn't necessarily have a job, um, would you hire him on? If he was, if you thought he would fit the bill, maybe you would. The problem with nepotism is that a lot of times when family members or friends are hired, they're unqualified. Okay, they're unqualified, and they sometimes replace or push out somebody that is extremely qualified, all for the sake of blood is thicker than water, all that that type of stuff. So yeah, it's one of those. I don't know. It's one of those sticky situations there, but it happens all the time. And sometimes you might not even know that you're working with the boss's daughter or uncle or aunt or mom or whatever. But most companies, I wouldn't say most companies, but a lot of companies are founded by family members anyway. So what do you think they're going to do? They're going to hire their own. That's just a human condition, right? Look after your own, right? I mean, um, you would hate to think that someone who's you know overqualified or very qualified, who's been there for like 30 years, 15 to 30 years, gets replaced by the 21-year-old son of the boss's uncle. I don't know. And not only that, they're being compensated more than that person who was there was compensated, right? They're getting paid more. That could really, in a lot of ways hurt the morale of that company, right? So there's a dark side to nepotism, and a lot of people don't really understand, especially a lot of business owners. I don't know if they take into consideration that if they, practice nepotism to, an unhealthy degree. I can understand, hey, hiring somebody every once in a while that's related or whatever, but if the whole office is family members, right, and then you have somebody in there, I'll say the whole head office or the managerial positions uh, are family members or related, or then yeah, that could really be a morale problem, right, for everybody else, right? There's a conflict of interest going on there. So guys, if you've experienced nepotism in any form or fashion, come in and chat and let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, guys. All right. Uh, yeah, guys. Let's see here. Let's jump right into this here. I'm gonna read an article, or I should say, a quick story about nepotism that I found very interesting, and I was like, "Wow, it's ridiculous," but it happens all the time. Okay, it happens all the time. Here it goes. Let's see here. This comes off of I think Reddit. Reddit. Everybody familiar with the site Reddit? It said, um, this person is talking about their last two jobs, and they're saying that the office side, okay, they were obsessed with hiring family members. Just what I was talking about. They were obsessed with hiring family members who are clueless, and they even pay them more, right? So apparently, this guy ended up taking less of a salary. Oh well, he was offered less of a salary, and he agreed to it, right? He said, like a sucker, he agreed. And after that, I guess the head of the company hired an in-law a few months later, and they bought him a $50,000 truck. Um, they paid him way more than what he was getting paid, and he's saying he's the lowest guy paid in the company. Yeah, guys, that stuff happens all the time, right? What do you think? What do you think about it? I mean, nepotism is aside from favoritism, and I think it's kind of the same. Favoritism is when it's not the person's not related to you; it's a friend, but it's kind of the same thing. We all seen it happen, right? And we I don't want to get into what some of the shenanigans people do to work their way up, but we all know what happens, right? And how can you combat nepotism? I don't really think you can. It's just part of the human condition. That's not going anywhere. Nepotism is not going anywhere. It's existed for probably centuries. Ever since there were jobs, ever since the Industrial Revolution happened, and probably before that. I know I've heard on other continents, in other countries, nepotism is like the norm, right? It's the norm. But it could be the downfall of nations. It could be stagnation of that certain countries' economies. Because if you're hiring unqualified family members or people that you know and you like, and they're unqualified, how can you grow economically, right? So nepotism really is, I don't know, it's one of those things where it's not illegal, but it's also could be the cause of lack of growth, So yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic there. So guys, come on the chat. Tell me about your stories, about what you witnessed, in terms of nepotism, you being looked over, you being passed over, possibly being fired, being replaced by somebody who's a family member, younger, or just your experiences on the job site, where, you see it just blatant nepotism happening and you couldn't do anything about it, right? Or maybe you did do something about it. Maybe you quit your job. You got out of there. But in some cases, not that easy. Sometimes, you can't find a job that easy, and you got to get paid, you got to pay those bills, and you got to deal with this type of stuff. But it definitely, it's not good when you're on the receiving end of it, right? So some of the things that you can do is, I don't know, just line up a new job somewhere else. Line up a new job somewhere else, and then go to your boss and say, "Hey, I would like to get paid more. I would like to get paid something that's worth my time." But also, if you do that, be ready to walk out the door, because that could be your last day there. So in situations like this, if you like your job, but you see that nepotism is causing a damper on it, then yeah, you may want to line something else up. But always be prepared. Always be prepared to get out of there. Don't be too attached to something, because it can just, in the corporate world, it can, nothing's guaranteed. Yeah. All right. Let's see, guys. All right, guys. Come on in. This live is brought to you by www.exactac.com, guys. That's our flagship product. Go ahead and check it out. It's one of the great tools out there that Calibrate's put out, and I really appreciate if you support the channel by at least checking the site out and see what we got to offer there. And I am coming out with calibrate.com. Look for that coming very soon, guys. Very soon, where we offer you products and services. Okay, because I'm not on here trying to get donations, guys. If you're gonna give something, if you're gonna give something, you're gonna get something back. That's just how it works. Okay, so check out our sponsor, exactact.com down there. All right, guys, come on in and tell us how you feel about nepotism, favoritism on the job. It's one of those things you can't avoid. I mean, just imagine that, guys. You come on a job and you're working hard, putting in your blood, sweat, and tears, only to have maybe a couple of months later, the new guy come on the job or new gal come on the job, and you already see the dynamics at play. You already see that they're being, treated better, all that stuff, right? And there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do about it. And if you approach your boss about it, if you're one of those people that just can't keep your mouth shut, which I totally understand, sometimes you got to speak up. Then be prepared. Be prepared for the consequences. Be prepared for the consequences, guys. Okay. Now, nepotism, like in the public sector, like when you're talking about public officials, nepotism, they do have laws that restrict nepotism because of the conflict of interest, right? And that's the public sector. But the private sector, no. That's just not how it is. Okay. I think here in California they have a law that prohibits nepotism and all that stuff. And I think it's California. It was called California Code of Regulations, Title Number 2. Yeah, that's what it is. But once again, guys, it's not illegal out there. So these are one of the hurdles that can it be overcome? Yeah, I don't think you can take. I don't think nepotism going anywhere, but it can be overcome in how you prepare yourself when you go out there in the world, especially in the job world, right? I'm a staunch proponent of having your own business. Okay, I'm a staunch proponent of starting your own enterprises, even if you work for someone. Have something else going on where you're not dependent on them solely, right? For your to feed you, for your livelihood. That's the biggest mistake you can make out there, right? Biggest mistake you can make. And if you prepare yourself now, right now, wherever you are, then you don't have to worry about a lot of this stuff. A lot of these things I bring up on these lives. Hey, Perry Girl Life Notes, how you doing? Thanks for coming on in and supporting. It happens a lot in a lot of family-owned businesses. Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I know some family-owned businesses that practice it. Now, if everybody gets along and it's everybody's being treated fairly, there's an equitable distribution of labor, then hey, it's just like it shouldn't matter. But in the real world, that doesn't happen. People get treated better. People get more perks. And I know I used to go to the port a lot, as in the trucking industry. I used to go to the port a lot, and that's all union down there. And man, I didn't even really see any African American mechanics down there at ports, Port Los Angeles. Maybe I'm calling out the Port Los Angeles, but ports, down there. But come on, guys, it's like, what's that all about? You're talking about nepotism, favoritism, and then possibly racism, right? It's like, hey, I'm not one to cry racism all day, but when you see this stark reality of, certain conditions, certain dynamics, you gotta say, wow, what's going on here? So yeah, in a lot of unions, matter of fact, unions have suffered because of nepotism. I think over time, unions have dwindled in their numbers because of these things. You got a lot of corruption, a lot of nepotism, like I said, a lot of favoritism. People don't want to be part of that if they're going to join something where they're going to be disenfranchised. So I get it. I get it. Now, I'm not knocking unions at all. I mean, they do have their place in American history, right? Unions have lobbied for a lot of good causes. They've lobbied for a lot of good causes. I think minimum wage being one of them. So they make, they've made stuff happen for the so-called middle class, if the middle class still exists. Um, but when you go, anytime you get into an organization and you move up the ranks, for instance, we're talking about unions right now, union bosses, people like that. That's when all the you know possible corruption and happens right at the top, right? So it's not necessarily the lower level, lower tier guys, but once you start climbing the ladder there, you see the stuff going on. So yeah, there's a place for unions, right, to stabilize, at least bring some accountability to corporate America, right? Because without them, hey, I mean, might as well go back to slavery in a lot of ways, right? But um, the unions themselves can become corrupted, right? Because you see all this money coming in, it's like, damn, So it's always a chance of that happening. And nepotism is just one of those byproducts of the human ego. When you get in certain positions of power, you know, it's just a natural. Unfortunately, it's one of those things, right? It's part of the human condition. So, but once again, like Perry Girl Life Note mentioned, small family-owned businesses. In those circumstances, it's not as volatile, the nepotism there, even though it exists there. A lot of times, if it's a small family-owned business, they really want to treat people right, equitable, and all that stuff because they're small, right? But once you get big in numbers and it's like people become numbers instead of names, then uh, this is when all this stuff happens, right? Because the humanity is lost, right? People, you see people as a commodity, right? So yeah, so anytime I bring up subjects like this, all the isms and stuff like that, I'm just doing it to make you ask yourself this question: how can I prepare myself uh, to to conquer these types of conditions out there in the workplace, right? How can I overcome it? And that was the title of the video. L. Harris, how you doing there, buddy? All things are relative. Explain. Is that a pun? All things are relative. Nepotism is relative. That's kind of funny, right? You're talking about relatives, nepotism. So yeah, that's a little play on words there. Yeah. So what can you do, guys? Come on in the chat and tell us some of the things I mentioned. What you can do. You can either quit or you can start your own thing. That's usually the best solution anyway. But everybody's not cut out to start their own thing, right? So everything's a trade-off. If you start your own thing, you got to deal with everything that comes with that. You are the boss. You started it, and you gotta take the hit. There's no one else to blame but you. Paragraph Life Notes. In the trades, it's kind of necessary to pass the trade forward. Absolutely. I know down at the ports, I think the ILWU union there. The parents, like if your parent is a longshoreman or something like that, then you automatically, as a child, get their card. If they die or they leave or something like that, you automatically get their card. I don't know all the details of it, and hey, that's great, right? If you work for like 20, 30 years in the ports, and you want to, you can get your family in, and it's set up that way where they get the card, they get first dibs. uh, you know I don't really see anything too wrong with that, especially if you come from a community that's been disenfranchised over time. um, that'll be a good way to build wealth. Good way to build wealth. So it's kind of a mixed bag here, guys. It's kind of a mixed bag. Nepotism, I can see how it can help in certain, like I just mentioned. And if you come from a community where it's opportunities are not as abundant, um, and you have the opportunity to get in and start making some big money, some good money, because of the rules that they have, then why not, right? I mean, I know I'd jump on it if I know if I was working down at the port, if I was a longshoreman and my son needed a job, or my daughter's husband needed a job or something like that. I would try to get him in. That's for sure, right? Everybody does that. That's called self-preservation. But like I said, it can get sticky when you have, you have a company or something, and you're hiring unqualified family members right in the face of people who've been there and are qualified, and they're getting passed over, uh, and they have to answer to a higher up who's an unqualified person. That can be really demoralizing, right? It can really hurt your business, because eventually, if that same person who's qualified, they're going to end up saying, I'm not dealing with this. I'm out of here. Um, so yeah, it's a two-edged sword. It's a two-edged sword. I think when it's practiced, okay, if you're gonna hire a family member, at least try to hire a qualified family member, you know, um, because it can really demoralize your existing your existing staff, the employees you have there now. Okay, and this is where communication, with your employees is very important, right? Communication with your staff, if you're a business owner, something like that. Maybe it's good to just have a meeting and an open conversation and talk to them about it, right? Tell them, hey, what would you do? I don't know if it'll make them feel any better, but at least they'll say to themselves, well, hey, at least he or she came straight to us and presented this to us. And that's this. We have a new member coming on. This is my family member, and just so they won't feel like it hit them, like a Mack truck when they walk in one day and they have to answer to some 20-year-old family member, right, getting paid more than them. So yeah, there's different ways to go about it. I won't say that will solve the problem totally, but you got to look at both sides, right? You got to look at the business owner, you got to look at the employees. Everything has two sides to it. 2, 3, 4 sides, by the way. Yeah. All right. So let's see here. Here's another story. I work for a construction company that the owner had both his daughters working there and one of their husbands. Neither daughter was qualified, and both were barely competent. And even the owner admitted that his son-in-law wouldn't be working there if he wasn't married to his daughter. The office I worked out of, one of the daughters ran, and her husband worked at that office. And literally every person in the office knew more about it than they did. It kind of is what it is. A lot of people want their family to work for them, and you're never going to get around that. That's what I was saying, guys. You're not going to get around that, this whole nepotism thing. You can pass laws against race. You can make racism illegal. You can make favoritism illegal. In the case of racism, yeah, you can make it illegal to discriminate. But people get around that too. There's ways of making that person feel less than on the job, even if you got to hire them, right? There's ways. People still, because it's a matter of the heart. It's a matter. It's an inner problem. You can't legislate the inner, but you can definitely start with the outer, right? You got to start somewhere. And he goes on to say, yeah, well, a lot of people want their family to work for them, and you're never going to get around that. And he said, I started my own company, and once I grew enough to need help, he said, once I grow enough to need help, I'll probably hire family. So this person themselves are admitting that, hey, if they were in the same position, they'd do the same thing. They would hire family. But he says, I'm going to expect them to learn their jobs. And I'm saying he, but it could be it can be a she as well. I'm going to expect them to learn their jobs, right? Well, right. Absolutely, right. You're going to expect them to learn their jobs, but you're still going to hire them as unqualified people over people that you had already, right? How about this? If you hire somebody, bring them in as an apprentice or somebody who's on the lower rungs of the company, right? That may kind of keep the morale going, because people will say to themselves, well, at least they're bringing them in not over me, but under me, so I can train them. But but you never know. They can be paying them, even though they bring them in at a lower position in in front of you. They could still be paying them more than you, right? You don't know. That's a family member. He says the only person who gets a free pass is my wife, but she currently works in the office at another construction company, so she actually knows what she's doing. Okay. He goes on to say, as far as your situation goes, I doubt it is going to help you to try to and negotiate higher pay. I've been straight up and told by a guy I interviewed with who was trying to poach me from where I worked at that he couldn't pay me more than his son, even though I had more experience and a master's degree in construction management. So my advice would be to find somewhere bigger, less likely to be able to staff with only your family if you're a regional office instead of the only office, or just try and find something better. Yeah, guys, I mean, you're not going to get around nepotism. You're just not going to get around it. I mean, it's we got, it's part of the human condition to look after your own. And if you're in a position of power, that's what you're going to do. That's just instinctual. It's instinctual. It's kind of tribal, instinctual, but it is what it is. The world's been like that forever. It's been like that forever, guys. So, nobody came in the chat telling me their stories about nepotism. Well, it's out there, guys. It's out there. All right, so let's see here. Let's see here, guys. Yeah, guys. So I just want to come on today and talk about that. There's another live. Not too many people came today, but that's fine. You catch me on the replay. Okay. Once again, guys, look out for calibrate.com. Coming with some products and services just for you. And that'll be coming up soon. Okay. So glad you guys were able to join me tonight. And you guys take care, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one.